Hello everyone, this is Dominika and welcome to our new episode of the Expat Career and Lifestyle podcast. And today I am coming to you with a very fantastic guest, Carrie Frais. She is a broadcast journalist and PR consultant who has been living in Barcelona, Spain since 2006. She's the founder of momabroad.com, one of Europe's leading websites for international families living in Spain, France, Italy, and Germany. She is also an author of Living the Dream, a powerful compilation of stories written by 10 women about the challenges of living abroad. She is also the founding member of Brime in Spain, which campaigns the rights of British citizens living in Spain and Europe, and she hosts a weekly radio show called The Soundtrack to My Life. So welcome, Carrie. Happy to have you here on the show. So please tell us more about you and how did you end up in Spain?
That was quite a long time ago now, so let's see if I can actually remember how I got here. But it all started at a wedding when I was strategically placed next to a young man who happened to share my passion for Spain. And it soon became evident that we were both looking for adventure as well as love, because we were both single at the time, and we got together, and within a year we decided to uproot our lives in London and move to Spain, although we both kept our careers going, and in a rather unenvironmentally commute. We travelled to and from between Barcelona and London for the first 3 years of our move to Spain, just to make sure we were making the right move and also to bring in some income. But when I fell pregnant with my first child, we had to make the decision whether to stay in London or make a permanent move to Spain, which was in Barcelona at the time. And we went on the more challenging option of Barcelona, and that was 16 years ago now. And then we had to really reinvent ourselves. My background's in journalism, so I was able to carry on a little bit with working for different broadcasters. And my husband's career was in sports marketing, and he had to completely reinvent his career. He's now a partner of a property firm, and I now have 2 businesses, but that's how we ended up here. But the first years were incredibly tough, because when you leave the security of a job and your friends and your extended family to nothing like that in another country, it can be very challenging.
Mm-hmm. So, like, what was your biggest challenge? This reinventing yourself, or did you overcome like bigger challenges?
That's a good question. Reinventing myself was difficult, but I wouldn't have made the move if I didn't feel confident that I could do that. The skills that you acquire in journalism are good to be able to adapt to lots of different environments. So I was able to use those skills in different contexts, and I now do a lot of writing and website editing, and I carry on with broadcasting, and I work as a PR consultant and was head of marketing also at one stage, but that was all down to my professional skills that I'd acquired in the UK. So it was a sort of semi-reinvention, but utilising those skills. But I do think that my biggest challenge was when my parents got ill. Firstly, my mother got ill when I had 2 really young children. They were just age 1 and 2 at the time. And she suffered from a very mysterious illness, which kept her in hospital for around 6 weeks. And I was having to travel back with my young kids, trying to look after them, trying to look after her and my father, who was obviously in a state of shock with his wife very ill in hospital. And that was horrific. And then sadly, 4 years after she got ill, she passed away very suddenly. So not being in the same country and also having to deal with my own grief, and again, looking after a family in a different country, my job and just domestic setup was extremely challenging. And then the same happened with my father. He got very ill as well with cancer, and he sadly passed away. And that whole period of my life, which actually extended over 10 years, looking back now, was really, really tough. And, I managed it because being in Barcelona, you can still travel relatively easily between London and Barcelona. It is only an hour and a half on the plane, but, having to uproot your family and not just being around the corner, which for a lot of people is, would be their situation, was incredibly tough. And I look back now and it's kind of feels a bit of like a blurred existence. Like I can't really remember a lot of it because I think that I was on sort of autopilot, because the adrenaline kicks in and you just force yourself to do these things. But now looking back now, I think how on earth did I do that? So I do think that's probably the biggest challenge, and obviously the reinvention. And I'm now ready for a nice calm period of my life, and hopefully, fingers crossed, I haven't got any major challenges.
Yes, because we like many people think that living abroad is it's a beautiful experience, but still you have to overcome those challenges like reinventing yourself or dealing with family who is living in your home country. So it can be very difficult. So you have to be prepared also for those kind of challenges. So like based on your experience, because you you have started this beautiful project, this beautiful website called momabroad.com. So what was like the why to start this website, this project?
It was really purely through selfish reasons, I have to say, Dominica. I found myself with a very young baby in the middle of a city, which I was at the time not that familiar with, and not having a clue about parenthood. And a very good friend of mine was also in the same situation. We had, I think our children were around 3 months at the time. My background, as I said, was journalism, and her background was internet marketing. So we came up with the idea that we would create a website which would offer mothers initially from the international community information on places to go with your children, activities for little babies or toddlers, family-friendly restaurants, services, home deliveries, all those kind of things, which coming from London, it was just so normal to have this kind of services around. But what we found that living in Barcelona is that many new mums just relied on their immediate family to look after their children. And we obviously didn't have that. So we started it, and it was initially called Barcelona Mum because it was based just around the city we lived in. But it grew organically as we realized this was a service that so many other international parents needed as well. So it expanded to Catalonia and then eventually to the whole of Spain. And now we also operate in Germany, Italy, and France. So the concept is essentially a go-to resource for parents from the international community living in or thinking about relocating to Spain, France, Italy, and Germany. And what we have on the site is that pretty much every single recommendation has been recommended, I should say, by another mum or dad. As parents, we all know that the best recommendations come from your contemporaries. So we hope that helps people when making decisions.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, so it was like your own, let's say, a selfish idea. So I like this. Yeah, why behind starting a project or finding your calling or finding a new path in your life abroad. So like based on your experience and also running Mom Abroad, so what do you see like are the biggest challenges of moms or women, expat women moving or living abroad?
There are several. As I mentioned, the extended family is one of the biggest challenges. Although if you speak to mothers in this situation, what they tend to do is create their family from their friends. So inevitably, you create your own family by your friends. I mean, you have to have help unless you're some kind of martyr. So in my situation, we would do babysitting rotas. We'd cook for one another when the kids were very young. We picked up kids from other parents' kids from schools or extracurricular activities. So that's one aspect that was very challenging, but there are ways around that. The other challenging situation, I would say, is work. Particularly if you're what's known as the trailing spouse, of which there are not so many of, but it used to be the situation where it was inevitably, not so much now, thank goodness, the man that would be offered the contract in the international company, and it would be the woman that would be the one left at home, having to sort of try and integrate and make her own friends, and not having, you know, the structure of a company environment. And that's very difficult as well. Equally, if you're traveling as a single person, or a mother as part of a partnership, but you haven't got work, finding work is very difficult, even if you're professionally qualified, because often the qualifications aren't recognized in Spain. And also, if you want to create a startup, which is what a lot of people do in this situation, it's not that easy. There aren't that many subsidies or grants for startups still. That is beginning to change, thank goodness. But I would definitely say that, you know, the work environment and you know, being a new parent is extremely difficult, but you know, you have so many benefits that offset that, and you just have to take these things into account.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like, because you you said at the beginning that you and your husband, like, you reinvented yourself, so you used your past skills to build a new career. But what, like, would you advise to a woman or to an expat woman living abroad or moving abroad, and she's like looking for her next career direction, maybe finding a job or starting a business? So as you said, it can be difficult. So what, like, will be your advice?
Well, things have changed hugely since I first moved to Spain. There were no sort of websites which advertised for jobs which needed international employees. Now, you know, being multilingual is a great advantage, and often the skills that you acquire elsewhere, certainly speaking English, is really valued. There are places like Glassdoor that offer a whole range of jobs for the international community living in Europe. But I would say, you know, the key things is that women need to learn to really big up themselves, and that's not their strength, and actually that's also a hugely attractive trait as well. So it's having that mix of being able to be sort of confident, to be able to promote yourself well, but, you know, not overly doing it so it becomes sort of aggressive, but using the skills that you've acquired in your formative years, whether it's at university or getting, you know, postgrad or your first years working, are highly valuable. But it's about using those skills and I suppose reevaluating them, rewriting them for culturally for the right audience, because they will, you know, they will take that into account. You know, for me, for example, I happen to work for the BBC, and I didn't used to mention it, and then I'd sort of throw it into conversation with someone who based here, and they would go, "Oh, BBC, love the BBC, that's amazing." And it's incredible to be able to use just something like that, and then people sort of take you a little bit more seriously. So it's about sort of looking through your CV, looking through what you've done, working out what you think will be useful to get you to where you want to do, what you want to do. So I also think there's a lot of international recruitment agencies that can give you advice about writing CVs and finding the right work for you. The difficulty is, I think, for new mums as well, is there are a number of jobs out there now for people from the international community, but the difficulty is there's not many part-time jobs or flexible jobs, which is often what women are looking for, something, you know, coming from the UK that's completely normal. And here you still are expected to work a full day of 9, 2-hour lunch break and finishing at 7 o'clock. And that's really difficult for someone who wants to be able to balance their family and their work life.
Yeah, so are definitely more possibilities and opportunities than before. And as you said, it's good, like, to promote yourself, to go and to be like confident and share your skills and experience also. And when it comes, like, for example, to starting a business, or someone who is thinking about starting an online business in Spain, what would you advise? What is your like experience?
That's a good way to start, because costs are low. You can do it, you know, starting an online business, you don't need any overheads. The only real cost obviously is setting up a website. But these days you really can spend a few €100 and being able to set up a decent website, as long as it's, easy to navigate, it's clear, it's well written, and it's got good branding, and it's got a very clear message, that essentially is where you need to start. But obviously you need to know the business first of all. I mean, for me, that the simplest advice would be go into a business within something, the environment you're good at, because some people have an idea that they really want to do this or that, but ultimately when you throw yourself into something that's quite foreign to you, you'll struggle. So you can sometimes include some of that passion with experience, but you definitely need to know what you're talking about and know what you're talking about in the language of the country you're living in, so you're able to present that well, not just to the international community if that's what you're targeting, but to be able to, maybe you want to do some public relations with some local media. I mean, it just looks good to be able to know your business inside and out in the right language, and get a good accountant. A lot of people try and do their own books themselves, which is fine to a certain extent, but the tax system in different countries can be quite complex, and it really helps to pay. I would say if you've got a little bit of extra cash and you're wondering where to spend it, for me, that's a sort of rock solid decision.
Yeah, so it's like getting professional support, professional advice when it comes to taxes and starting your business. This is very important. Also, and language. Knowing language when you're locating. So this is very important too, as you said. And so, like, what will be if someone is, for example, if a woman is, for example, thinking now, an expat woman or international, globally mobile woman is thinking about relocating right now to Spain, maybe because she wants like more adventure, she wants to change her life, or she's locating with her family, her husband. So what will be your advice? Is because you you write this book, Living the Dream. So is living the dream possible? Or what?
Well, I have to say for Dominica, the title of the book is #Living the Dream, just because there was irony in the title. You know, on the Instagram hashtags, when you see that typical beautiful of the sea and a cocktail in the sand, and people write, #living the dream or #blessed, which probably winds a lot of people up. And, so the irony behind the title of the book was that, no, it's not always like this. But certainly, of course, there are elements of that, but there is no way that anyone anywhere could always be constantly living the dream. It would be impossible. We're always thrown different challenges. So, and also, what is the dream? And everyone has a completely different dream. There's a stereotypical dream, which living abroad, I guess, used to be really, I suppose, geared at the retired population. So that would be, once you've done your 40 years of work, wherever you're from, then you'd go and retire. And maybe, yes, you would be sitting in a beach bar and gazing at the sea all day. But I think for the younger generation, that's not living the dream. We'd all feel hugely frustrated after a couple of weeks of doing that. So you need to be able to mix, that fantastic lifestyle element of living abroad, but also being personally challenged professionally and personally. So anyone thinking about moving, give it lots of thought. I know that's quite an obvious thing to do, but when we moved abroad, although it sounded quickly and we did it within a year, we were constantly networking and finding out about areas to live and, possible business grants, and we took in so many different things into account, and it certainly wasn't a spur of the moment decision. We really weighed up whether it was the right thing to do for us. And no one ever really knows whether it is the right thing, because you only have one shot at life. So we could have been equally as happy if we stayed in London, and luckily for us, we've been, aside from some quite big challenges on the way, we've been very happy. But yeah, do people need to do their research? And we were luckier, I think, because we decided to make the move prior to having children, which is obviously going to be a lot easier. So we didn't have to take into account where you would send your children. And in our case, living in Catalonia, you have to decide whether you want to send your children to a Catalan-speaking school or bilingual or just English-speaking. And you've got so many different factors to take into account. But when the children are born in the country, it's much easier because you're already, immediately immersed into the parent network. So my advice would, if you're thinking about it and you haven't had children, it's probably better to do it then. And if you've got children, there are certain times when it's better than others. A lot of people say that around when the kids are around 10 or 11, before they've really immersed themselves into secondary school, is a good time. But when they're into their mid-teens, that's a very tricky time to bring kids out of school. And certainly when they're in sort of, baccalaureate age, that's quite tricky. After that, so when they're at university, that's a good time for parents to think about, reinventing themselves or changing their life. Then it's a lot easier again. But it's those middle years for kids that make things difficult.
Yeah, so like many aspects to think about before you move. And as you said, like living the dream, it's possible, but it's not like it's not like a stereotypical dream of person living abroad. Even, for example, as a digital nomad, because now we hear like talking about a lot digital nomads, like having this laptop lifestyle, going abroad for 1 week, 2 weeks, or like 1 month with your laptop and working from there. But there is still a lot of work behind that. So it's not like sitting on the beach, as you said, and drinking your cocktail or having fun. So thank you very much for pointing that out. So like, what are your so you are involved in many projects, but what are your plans like for the future?
Actually, now you mentioned that about being different projects, I forgot to mention that. That's the other thing I would recommend to people thinking about making a move. Don't put all your eggs into one basket. You can have different projects, because obviously we know that life's always like that. We've seen that in the past 12 months, that how difficult it is when you've just got one job. I know that's not always the case. It's very difficult for some people, but if you can have different projects that you can work on, and it's also, it makes life a bit more stimulating if you can work on different projects. So for me, I have, as you mentioned in my introduction, lots of different projects, which I'll be working on all of them. I've been asked to do a second volume of #Living the Dream, which may be based on men's experiences. I haven't decided this yet. The older generation's experiences, or just more experiences about motherhood, which is obviously what I know a lot about, how to survive being a mum abroad. So that's in the pipeline. My podcast as well, which you mentioned, the soundtrack to my life, is storytelling, but through music. In the last year, a lot of people have done some soul searching and, asked lots of existentialist questions, but a lot of the time they don't really know how to express how they're feeling. And I found that using music as a vehicle for people to express themselves has worked really well. So that's how the program works. And then, expanding Mum Abroad as well, and working as well in my communications company. So, but as far as personal challenges are concerned, really, as I mentioned earlier on, I'm looking for some nice, calm years ahead.
Yeah, I think that we all are looking for some calm years ahead. After the pandemic, we are still in the pandemic. So but let's hope like for the better year, for better months ahead. Fantastic. So congratulations on all your projects and all the future ideas that you are working on. So where people can find more about you and connect with you?
The website is mumabroad.com. The book is called #Living the Dream, which you can find on all marketplaces, on Amazon. And my website is carriefrais.com, which has the information on the podcast.
Okay, fantastic. So I will put the links with the show notes so people can go and check the book and also the website mumabroad.com and connect with you for more information. So thank you very much again for being with us here today, Carrie.
Thank you, Dominika. It's been a real pleasure.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you very much for listening or for watching this episode. So please tell us, what are your learning points from this interview? What action steps are you going to take after this interview? Share your insights in the comments, and I will be back soon with another fantastic episode. So thank you very much and goodbye.